God who heals. We sing to the God who saves. We sing to the God who always makes a way.
I just wanted to say before I got started today that it's good to come into the house of the Lord and have people talking with each other, have people smiling at each other, have people fellowshipping with each other, and I think that's a blessing in and of itself. So I just wanted to point out that I'm very pleased, and I'm sure the Lord is pleased with the way that we're treating each other. And that's a good thing. And it's a thing that is not lost on today's lesson either. If you'll remember last week, there was a big rift in this family. Jacob and Esau pretty much self-destructed the family on each other through a series of deceptions and flat-out lies and twisting of things and trying to do it their own way. That family had absolutely self-destructed. All trust was lost. Isaac had lost his faith in his wife. He couldn't trust her because she had deceived him. The brothers, the twins, were literally at each other's throats. The family was just, the patriarch had decided to try and supplant the way that God had decided things to go, and he was going to do it his own way, kind of in a little back room ceremony, and everything just melted down. Well, we're picking up pretty much right where we left off last week. Rebekah and Jacob had carried out their plan to deceive Esau and Isaac. Jacob had lied to his father. Isaac had come back and realized that he had been deceived. Esau came back from the field and asked for his blessing, and Dad was like, you were just here. And Esau said, I just got back. And Isaac says, I gave the blessing to your brother. And Esau is just enraged. The Bible says how he just cried out and you get the impression of like a caged animal or an animal that's caught in a snare. It's just cornered, just enraged and broken and shattered and scared and defeated, all wrapped into one. And he tells his dad, he said, don't you have a blessing for me either? You just got one? And so his father gives him a blessing of sorts. Says something to the effect that he would be away from the blessings of the dew and the blessings of the abundance of the ground, and that he would live by the sword, but that he would be under his brother's authority, but he could break away. If that was the best blessing that you could give your family, man, what a broken family that is. So he's talking, we're going to jump into chapter 27 of Genesis. This is the patriarch talking to the eldest, and he says, he said unto him, thy brother came with subtlety and has taken away thy blessing. With subtlety. Doesn't Genesis also use that word in the Garden of Eden about the serpent was the most subtle of any creature? See, the devil didn't change his attack patterns very much, did he? He went subtle. It's like, let's make it look good. Let's make it look right. Let's make it look. But underneath, is it just a deceitful lie? Verse 36, and he said, is not he rightly named Jacob? For he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, which isn't exactly the truth, is it? I mean, he didn't really take it away. Didn't he kind of sell it to him for a bowl of lentil soup? Anyhow, when you're mad, you see it your way, right? Okay, so anyhow, it's still in the heat of everything right here. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he has taken away my blessing. And he said, hast thou not reserved a blessing for me? You can just hear it in his voice. Dad, don't I have anything? And Isaac answered and said unto Esau, behold, I have made him thy Lord, and all his brethren have I given to him for servants. And that's not exactly the truth either, is it? It was part of the blessing, but God did that. God had already declared that, hadn't he? That the youngest would rule over the oldest. That was already known to him. Rebekah had told him that already. He knew that. Anyway, Isaac answered and said to Esau, I have made him thy Lord, and all his brethren have I given to him for servants, and with corn and with corn and wine have I sustained him. What shall I do now unto thee, my son? Was he a one-trick pony? Was that all that the patriarch had, was one blessing? Like I said, he went ahead and did give another blessing to his eldest son. But that blessing was not anything like he had expected. Verse 41, we skip a few verses here. Verse 41 says, and Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then I will slay my brother Jacob. Esau was a brother scorned. Esau, in his mind, and in a lot of, just from the outside looking in, he had a right to be mad. Yeah, he had sold his birthright out for, a bowl of soup, but can you really do that? Technicalities at play here. But then his brother had literally tricked his father into giving him the blessing. Well, why didn't Isaac just say, hey, whoa, foul. That doesn't count. You can't have the blessing. That's Esau's blessing. Well, the only reason a blessing works in the first place is if God is in the blessing. I can bless you all day long, and I can claim blessings upon you all day long. I can say, be fruitful and multiply. I can say, may your business ventures be productive. I can say that all day long, but if God is not in it, that's nothing more than me wishing you a good time. That has no more power than me saying to you, have a good day at school, honey. It's not in my power to give you a good day at school, any more than it's in your power to wish your spouse, have a good day at work. Well, those are hopeful words, but there's not really a whole lot we can do about that. Have fun, kids. There's not really much that does, is there? Other than just kind of, I'm telling you what I hope will be the case for today. But Isaac understood that God's blessing had already been given. Now, if you ever pray for somebody or pray over someone or have the opportunity to pray a blessing over someone, when it takes, you know it. When God is in it, you can feel His power moving through your words. You can feel, you can see, you just sense all over your body the electricity of the power of God moving through your words. And you know that you can't take that back because you didn't put it out there to begin with. And I'm sure that Isaac knew what he had just done was from God. I'm sure that there was a sense of even I was supposed to bless Jacob. I had this little plan in my head that says I'm going to do it just me and my eldest son because it's what I wanted. Well, God caught me and I got caught, and so now, okay, I'm going to be the passive sacrifice again. I'm sure there was a bit of embarrassment on his part, saying, I tried it my way this once and it didn't work. I tried to do what I wanted to do, not what Abraham said to do, not what God had told me to do or promised me, or not what my wife said, but I wanted to do it my way. And look at the mess I made out of it. Man, how many times have I been there? Look at the mess I've made of this family. I can just imagine. But Esau was a man of the woods. He was a man of action. He was a man of anger and emotions, just one side to the other, up and down, left and right. He flew mad, and he was mad. And he was mad. When you're mad, you tell people you're mad, don't you? Folks, hey, what's wrong? What's wrong, Esau? What's the matter, baby? You just came from that big thing that you was going to do with Dad. What happened? You know what that swindling brother of mine did? Let me tell you what that brother did to me while I wasn't looking. Everybody knows why you're mad, don't they? There's no hiding it. We get mad and we say things about people. We say things to people, about people, trying to justify our anger. Because doesn't the Bible tell us to be angry but sin not? And to not let the sun go down on our anger? Doesn't the Bible tell us over and over and over to reconcile with your brother? Before you even come to reconcile with God, you'd better get it fixed with your brother. Doesn't the book say that? To leave your offering on the altar and go fix it with your brother and then come back and make your offerings to God? How many times have we done that, though? How many times? Isn't it a lot easier just to say, hey, God, I'm still really ticked at so-and-so, but I want to ask your blessings on me and my family. God, I want to pray a curse down on my brother over here, but I'd really like for you to be good to me. Or even, did you not see how he treated me, God? Now, you got to do better than that. Esau was mad, and he acted in anger, and he made it known that that's all right. Daddy's going to die one of these days, and when Daddy's gone, little brother's going to feel my wrath. But with the thing with Esau, they believed him. Remember, Esau was this big, hairy, red fella, and he was in the woods a lot. He come back smelling of woodland and death, and, he come back, when he went to the woods, he come back with something dead. And it was not a thing to be ignored. It's, that's just Esau. So they believed it. They believed it enough so that they told Mama. And Mama, again, went into action. We skipped Genesis 27 over to Genesis 33. But there's a little bit was going on here. Rebekah heard that Esau had vowed to kill his brother, and she took action. She told Isaac, I couldn't handle it if he come in with a wife like these two women that Esau has married. You need to send him over here to my brother Laban and let him take a wife from there, from our kinfolk and our way of doing things. So Jacob sent him on his way. Isaac sent Jacob on his way with his blessing to go and find a wife in the house of Laban, Rebekah's uncle, right? So there he goes, and he's off doing that. You know the story that goes on over there. Jacob learned from the best how to have a dysfunctional family. And he took it one step further. He got there and he went to work for his Uncle Laban and immediately fell in love with his pretty little daughter, who had come out to meet him and water her camels or her flocks. Fell in love, went and told Uncle Laban, said, hey, I've worked for you now. He was there for about a month. And he said, I've worked for you for over a month and I didn't even mention wages. Let me have your daughter, Rachel. Get my names right here, yeah. Let me have your daughter, Rachel, for my wife, and I'll work for you for 7 years to pay for her. Okay, he did that. 7 years later, the wedding day comes around, big celebration, late into the night. He goes into his new wife, wakes up in the morning, and it was the older sister Leah. And he was unamused. The trickster had been tricked. Everything, all of his trickery that he used just got threw right back in his face. So he went straight up to Laban and he said, what is going on here? Why have you given me the oldest daughter instead of the one that we bargained for? What was his answer?
The oldest had to go first.
That's not the way we do things here. The oldest has to have first pick. Wow. After he had just been run off from home 7 years ago for subordinating that whole way of doing things, it still came back and got him. He fell under the exact traditions that he had supplanted around, had went around. So he told his father-in-law, he said, okay, look, you owe me Rebecca. And basically, Daddy said, okay, look, you've got a week-long wedding feast. Once the wedding feast is over, you can have Rebecca too. I'm sorry, Rachel, thank you. Too many names in my head right now. Okay, so get it back, get all my names back in the right place. Jacob told Daddy-in-law that he wanted Rachel. Okay? And Rachel was after the week-long celebration for him marrying her sister. Boy, didn't have much sense, did he? I want to marry sisters. What's the worst? Nothing could go wrong with that. So he kept them both, and oh man, the fireworks just started then. I think he might have wished several times that he had stayed at home and took his chances with Esau. Because not only did he marry sisters, and you know how well sisters get along anyway, especially when they're competing for the affection of a man. Not only did he have a big family with the sister Leah, he also had family with the maids, the servants of them. And finally, after all of this is said and done, he and Rachel have one child. So he's had all of this going on, all of this dysfunctionality to the 100th degree now. He took everything that Isaac and Rebekah taught him, he multiplied it, perfected it, put it into motion, and if there's ever a story in the Bible that proves out there's a way that seems right to a man, but the end of there is death, if there's ever a story that proves that out, it's this one. Any decision that he could have made badly, he did. He did. To the point of, after these 14 years, it's going on 20 years now, when he decides to come back home, there has been so much trickery in that family. There has been so much lying in that family. Laban changed his wages on him 10 times without telling him. Tricked him into marrying both of his daughters. Then laid this guilt trip on him about, oh, you can't leave with my grandchildren. then accused him of stealing his flocks. Of course, there was not a total lie to that, because if you'll remember, the good flocks he kind of kept over to his side, and the weaker ones he put over there to Laban's side. So he really earned a reputation with Laban. He perfected that reputation. He decides, I'm going home, or basically decides, I'm out of here. God told him, get on back home, make stuff right. Yesterday, he divides up his family. Okay? He divides up his family and sends them in a division. We'll get to that in a minute. He sends out a whole bunch of flocks toward his brother, he sent word and said, hey, go tell my brother I'm coming. But then he sent hundreds of cattle, hundreds of sheep, hundreds of goats, and just sent them forward. And he said, you tell my brother, if he asks you, that this is a gift to my Lord from your brother, and he follows after. And then 3 waves of these herds coming towards Esau. He goes past them all, him and, by the way, 400 of his men with him. Passes all of them up, and then Jacob had decided, okay, if he is still mad, if he's still coming, I'm going to give the one that I love the most the best chance of getting away. So he takes his precious Rachel, puts her at the end with their child. Then in front of them he takes Leah, and all of her children that she had borne to him next. Then the 2 slave girls and the families that he had with them up front, trying to say, I guess, if you wanted to look at it this way, if they come and they start killing everybody, then at least Rachel and Joseph have an escape route, give them the best chance of escape. He was still working in his own mind, right? The night before all of this comes to be, though, he gets in a wrestling match. It turns out to be an angel. Some have said that it's a pre-incarnate Christ, that Christ had actually come to earth and confronted him, fell upon him at night while he was asleep, and wrestled with him all night long until the morning, and he refused to turn him loose because he said, I won't turn you loose until you give me a blessing. Got him on the hip and threw his hip out. He limped the rest of his life. And he finally got the blessing. And then the sun comes up. And then all of this comes into play. Verse 1, chapter 33. He looks up and he says, and Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men. And he divided the children into Leah, unto Rachel, unto the 2 handmaids. Put the handmaids and their children foremost, Leah and her children after, Rachel and Joseph hindermost. See, he's still got his favorites, don't he? He still has his favorites, and he is displaying his favorites. He is displaying, these I love most, these I love pretty good, you guys up there are expendable. And then verse 3 says, and he passed over before them and bowed himself to the ground 7 times till he came near to his brother. Now, he went in front of everybody, so I'll give him that. And then he bowed himself 7 times to the ground. Now, in those times when you were approaching a lord or a king or a someone, you would show humility by bowing yourself to them. This is still a very strong, a very prevalent thing in Asian culture. When I was in Korea, they would bow as they would speak to you, and as they would say thank you, it would always be a bow, and it would always a head nod, a gesture of humility. When in an Asian culture, if you come into the presence of your maternal or paternal grandparents, you were expected to literally bow, and to meet the emperor or the president, or, to meet someone of very high authority, still literally on the knees to the ground, and then stand back up, and sometimes shake hands. But even that wasn't enough here. 7 times he got up, and then he went right back to the ground in a show of humility to show that he had humbled himself. And he did that 7 times. A complete number, right, in the Bible. Total humility before his brother. Verse 4 says, Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Now here's the picture of reunification. Here's the picture of reconciliation. Here's a picture of how every bad thing that has happened in the past is forgiven. And it's forgiven by the person who the harm was done to. It's forgiven by the person who was hurt in all of this. Well, I ain't going to forgive that person because they hurt me. Well, there's the whole point. You got nothing to forgive if you're not the one hurt. If you do the hurting, you don't have any forgiving to do. You have to be humble enough to ask for forgiveness. You have to humble yourself down and be able to admit that, and this is hard. It's hard to admit that you've hurt somebody. It's hard to admit that you have wronged somebody intentionally, knowingly, and did it anyway, hurt that person. Especially if it's somebody that we love. To be able to look at your actions, my actions, and say, that was evil. That hurt somebody. And I meant to. That was my intent. I meant to hurt you, and it worked. And I'm sorry. Every counselor that you talk to will mention to you that you have to own your mistakes, that you have to own the things that you have done in the situation. Even divorce counselors will tell you it's not ever one person's fault. There's plenty of blame to go around. There was plenty of blame to go around in the story of Esau and Jacob, and there's plenty of blame to go around in whatever story we want to relate to that today. But the point that God was trying to make with this, keeping this history from being lost, is to forgive the one that hurts you. And that wasn't just a cool little thought. That wasn't just a nice concept that God threw out there and said, okay, humans, you got to forgive each other when they hurt you. Because God gave us the ultimate demonstration of that when He Himself bore our sins in the form of the Son, Jesus Christ. When God Himself took all of the hurt that all of humanity since creation had thrown at Him, all of the betrayal, all of the going against what God had asked of us, what God had commanded His children to do, all of that hurt, all of that deception, all of that betrayal, He forgave. And He forgave it so completely that He was willing to make a way. He made the way. He sent His Son. He left the Comforter. He made the way for us to be reconciled to Him. Even though we have sinned, even though we are still sinning every day, even though our whole mind and thoughts and body is wrapped up in a sinful existence. He's still made that way. Let's look on here. I'm about to run out of time. We pick up in the very next, skip a couple of little verses there. Esau now is talking here. He says, and he said, what meanest thou by all this drove which I met? And he said, these are to find grace in the sight of my Lord. See, when you're sorry, when you really regret what you have done, when you mean it, and you're not just sorry you got caught, you try to make things right. Jacob knew that he had done wrong by his brother. Maybe a little part of him was afraid that his brother would come and still have all that anger against him, and he wanted to soften him up a little bit by giving him all this stuff. Maybe, but I think he also realized that he had done his brother wrong, and his brother deserved this. And Esau said in verse 9, verse 8, Jacob said unto him, these are to find grace in the sight of my Lord. He basically disavowed his birthright that he had taken, didn't he? He said, my Lord. You are over me. I'm not over you now, Esau. Basically, I give you your birthright back, my Lord. Do you see that in there? He accepted what he had done. He accepted where he had taken Esau's birthright. God didn't give that to him, did he? God gave him a blessing, but he didn't give him the birthright. Because there's a certain thing, there's a certain way that God has designed things, and that's the way they work. This culture's designation of the birthright was the firstborn. It wasn't something that you could sell off. It was, you're the oldest. Jacob tried to supplement. I keep saying that wrong word. I'm just going to find a different word. Jacob tried to go around that and steal it himself. And he thought he did, legally he had. There was a transaction made. I give you soup, I get your birthright, but that wasn't the way that it worked. There's still a law of nature that we cannot, just because we feel like it, go around. There's still a law of nature that just because we want to be something doesn't mean that we are. Esau said in verse 9, I have enough, my brother. Keep that thou hast unto thyself. I have enough, my brother. He didn't say I got plenty. He didn't say I don't need it. He didn't say I don't know what I'm going to do with it. He said, I have enough. But Jacob said in verse 10, Jacob said, Nay, I pray thee, if now I have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand. Let me back up here and look at a couple of things. Verse 8, Esau was asking what is meant by this drove. Why all these animals? Why all these flocks? And he said, these are to find grace in the sight of my Lord. These are for you. This is a thing that I am giving to you. An offering, if you will. And then Jacob, in verse 10, said, if I have found grace in thy sight, come on in, Alan. If I have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present. It's no longer, now he's calling it a present. It's something, it's a gift that I am giving to you. I am giving. It's a gift. If Esau had not accepted the present, then he would have known that the forgiveness was not real. he would have known that there was still some animosity buried in there. He would have known, because he knew his brother and he knew the way he would have reacted, I don't want your stuff. Typical Jacob trying to give me stuff. He didn't do that. He accepted it. And the next part here of this verse is amazing. And this is still Jacob talking. For therefore I have seen thy face as though I had seen the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me. Jacob was saying, he was looking on the face of his brother, and he could see. You could see no anger, no hatred, no cunning connivingness, no waiting for the right time. He could see forgiveness. And he recognized forgiveness because God had forgiven him. He could forgive, he could recognize that he had been forgiven by his brother because God had forgiven him for all the stuff that he did against God. Because he did a lot against God that God had to forgive him for. Verse 11 goes on to say, take, I pray thee, my blessing that is brought to thee. First it was a present, now it's a blessing. What did Jacob steal from Esau? His blessing. He took Esau's blessing, and now he's giving it back. The thing that his father had blessed Jacob with, if you go back and read it, is what he gave back to Esau. The blessings of the land, the blessings of the fertile cattle, the blessings of all of that stuff that Isaac had blessed Jacob with. And Jacob had stuff. He had a lot. He gave it to him. Now, honestly, Esau didn't lose anything much. Okay, after Jacob had stolen his birthright, after he had stolen the blessing, he hightailed it out of town and he was gone. So he didn't lose, Esau did not lose his birthright because he didn't get just 2/3, he got it all. And he didn't lose the blessing really because Jacob gave it back to him. Probably with a little extra. But he had given it back to him. Verse 11 says, and he urged him and he took it. I skipped a part that's very important. Let me back up a little, please. Because, he said, because God hath dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. Now, Jacob didn't give him half of what he had. He gave him a lot, but he had a bunch more. He was able to cut all of this out and give it to his brother because God had been gracious to him, and he saw no reason that God would stop being gracious to him, because now God gave me all of this when I was not really in His will. Now that I am in His will, how much more is He going to bless me? And if you read on through, a lot. And he recognized, is that even a word? He recognized God's blessing upon him. He accepted that God would provide, and he was able to say, I have enough. It's one thing for Esau to say it, I got enough. How much did he really have? He was a hunter, right? And, he had stuff, and there was enough, but there wasn't a plenty, probably. Jacob had plenty. And I can just imagine him saying this in his mind, saying, with God giving it to me, I have enough, and I will always have enough. God will take care of me. I will always have enough because I have that promise that He will take care of me. And he urged his brother, please take it. And so he took it. Now, something to keep in mind, the relationship between the brothers was healed. There was no more animosity. There was no more anger. There was no more open warfare. But it didn't go back to the way that it was either. They didn't go back and dwell together in the house of Daddy Isaac. They were always in two different places. Hey guys, welcome. Come on in. They were always in two different places. The family never got back together at the home place for a reunion. They were still saying, hey, it's good to see you guys. They were never like it used to be. But the family itself was no longer in open warfare. And it had healed. God had healed the relationship of the brothers. So even though it wasn't like it used to be, it was still good. Even though Esau wasn't going out in the woods and Jacob was sitting at home with Mama and everything was like it used to be, it wasn't. But it was better. It was better. It was different, but it was better because the anger wasn't there. The trickery wasn't there. The favorites wasn't there anymore. It was a whole family. The family was healed. A healed family is a strong family. Make sure I've got all of my notes here. So, while they did part ways again, this time they parted as brothers, loving family. And in the end, Esau got more than what he would have. Jacob had more than what he would have if he'd claimed the birthright and the 2/3 and all that. God did bless them both. And by Jacob being willing to make it right with his brother, he healed the family. And family is more important than stuff. You know, Esau might have got all the stuff, but Jacob got stuff too. And he had his stuff. Esau had his stuff. And the family was a unit. It was a whole family. I don't think it's an accident that this lesson is coming about in the time that it's coming about. You know, we as a church have in times past been parted up. We've had animosities with other parts of this family, other brothers. We are at an opportunity right now to heal. And doesn't the book tell us that if my people who are called by my name will do what? Humble themselves and pray and turn from their wicked ways, then what will God do? I will hear again. I will hear you again from heaven. And I'll heal your land. We're looking right now towards the future, towards the next chapter in the book of Deep Springs, if you will. Where are we going to go from here? Wherever it is, let's go forward as a unified, reunified family of God. Let's build each other up in prayer. Let's keep each other held close. Let's bear each other's burdens. See what God can do. We've seen what the devil can do. Now let's see what God can do when we do it His way. Can we do that? Let me offer a little prayer for us, and then I'll close out. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for this place, for these people, for this time, Lord, because this is the time that you have put us on earth for. Nothing is an accident here. This is our time that you have given to us. May we walk worthy, Lord, in the profession wherein we have been called by you. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you for your attention this morning, and hang around for the preaching. It'll start in about 10 minutes. Thank you.